And welcome back to Global Business News TV. As you could see, proudly American flag. Again, this series, I love it. I happen to vote for President Reagan twice and really enjoyed that leadership role. Became successful because of that. So Ronald Cooper is a hero and a hero to many people, including me. I'm proud to show the flag. He was the epitome of the Top Gun trainer in the Air Force, squadron leader, flown 300 plus missions and survived every one of them, and helped his team survive because of discipline and because not discipline from do this or else, but discipline of thinking. And this is what I'm learning from these conversations with Ron Cooper. In business today, he's a executive leadership trainer, executive training. Just because you're an executive doesn't mean you're a leader. Other people have to give you the reins. And then it's up to the leader to maintain them and grow them. Tell us about, there's no dirty secrets here. The white, crystal, crystal clear secrets of taking care of people. And your 4 words, I believe in you, super powerful. Tell us more, please.
Ed, thank you. It's always a great opportunity to be with you, your
Thank you.
audience, and just a great opportunity to share some thoughts that have impacted my life. And there are 4 men, very particularly, who did believe in me. And I overcame what was a very dark part of my life early on, and I had a very poor mental health. I now know it. I didn't think of it at the time. But Ed, I think 4 of the most powerful words we can ever speak, and you don't even have to speak them, but the person with whom you're working will know, are I believe in you. And I have some slides that I want to talk about that. And Ed, there are some of us, and this is the way I used to be. I had a very low self image, I had no confidence. It was in early life that I was uncertain if I had any worth to anyone. And I am not overstating anything I'm saying. But as I worked with my grandfather, a third grade dropout, his son, my uncle, and my high school football coach, and later my wife's father, my father-in-law, and Marty now, they are helping me over what was a very dark early part of my life. And I believe in you is the basic theme, although I will say, Ed, that none of the 4 men actually spoke those 4 words, but they invested time with me, and we enjoyed being in each other's presence. So I can look back and know that they did invest time in me. They did believe in me. Otherwise, I cannot believe they would have spent as much time with me as they did. And so I want to encourage our listeners to, and I'm going to talk about investing in another person's life. And when I talk about investing, it's time, could be money, but it's your interest in another person. Do you believe in them? Do you believe they have untapped potential? And for those who do have untapped potential and you believe in them, I can almost promise you, guarantee you, you will help that person develop their fullest potential. But Ed, I'll bring up my slides and just talk very briefly in who believed, or apostrophe S, past tense, or who believes now in you. And very important. And again, those 4 words that are so powerful, I believe in you. Even if unspoken, we will know if you do by virtue of the amount of time that you are willing to spend with us. But I'll talk very briefly about the participant mindset, and that is and we could use the term mentor, mentee. My grandfather, uncle, high school football coach, father-in-law, and Marty each functioned in a mentoring role, albeit they were not formally designated that. But as a participant, if you're willing to invest in another person, you do have to make an assessment that is the person worthy of our resource investment, resource and time, maybe money, but is the person worthy of that? And then are we willing to invest without any expectation of anything in return? I want to explain that just a little bit, Ed. I was, no, I'd say probably 2 decades or so of my early life that was, I would say, somewhat wasted in that I had to overcome. And it was many years after my grandfather, uncle, high school football coach, father in law had the impact on me they did, that I was able to assimilate all of that in my mind. And I'm thankful that I was able to, that I did thank each of the four of them before they passed away. None of those four are living right now. But as I reflected on my life, I did thank them for the investment they made in my life. And I know neither one of them had any expectation of anything in return. In other words, they were not expecting, within a few minutes of my compliments and so forth. And I quite honestly at the time didn't even know how to compliment them because I didn't know the impact they were having on my life. But it was decades later where I was able to assimilate all that. In the bullet statement of total acceptance, as you are willing to invest in a person's life, are you willing to accept them, albeit however awkward they may be, different, or something of that nature? I can say that I know I was very socially awkward. And there were times I could go a couple of weeks without saying anything, and various reasons for that. But if you are willing to say, yes, I'm willing to do all of these things we just discussed, that I'll take whatever time I have and this person is worthy, I would say, okay, you've met some of the basic criterias. Now, here is one of the things that I believe very sincerely, words matter in Moravian, and I am just vaguely familiar, but he has come up with the rule of the 7-38-55 rule that has proven over time, and that is 7% of what we say and do is conveyed through words. And so words do matter. But in my case, I will tell you that in early life, without going into great depth right now, there were some statements made, and I was uncertain how to process all that, but I did process it in a way that made me feel that, well, maybe I'm just intellectually incapable of learning. The 38% in the Moravian rule is 38% of what is spoken is conveyed through a tone of voice. Ed, we've spoken of that in the past in these forums. And if you have a spouse, you're married, it's almost guaranteed at some point, someone said it's not so much what you said, it's how you said it. That is very operative. But then 55%, the greatest part of what we convey in words is conveyed with body language. Something so simple as a smile, the pace at which we walk, maybe outstretched arms, it could be a handshake, any of these kind of things, Ed. And it's but the greatest impact people have are is through the body language. And I will tell you that each of the four men I referenced each had their own body language through a handshake, maybe a pat on the shoulder, anything like that. And those kind of things are very meaningful. And we, even though we're very awkward and maybe don't say very much, we are processing everything that you convey to us, everything that is conveyed in words, into body language, and so forth. And then, okay, so what is some of the resource investment? I think of resources as time. Are we willing to spend time with people? And it's just a matter of how things work out. Do I have a high enough priority? Do you have a high enough priority to where we are willing to make time for each other? And then time thinking with each other. That I frequently think of having a thinking partner. Marty, my wife, of as we're recording this, 57 years, is one of my greatest thinking partners. I do have a life coach, and he and I meet frequently, and he is my thinking partner. And
Let me
so,
ask you a question, if I may.
right there, yes.
And Moravian, I'm not familiar with that. And who is this person, and how did you find him?
I'm going to be honest with you, Ed. I do not know a lot about this person. I have heard others speak of him, and I know that much about him. And so I am not well versed on exactly who he is, but I will say those with whom I am associated and we share the same values, they have mentioned him, and I thought, my intuitive sense is I agree with that 738-55 rule. That's about the best I can do, Ed.
No, I read that on the slide the other day, and I'd like you to display that when you can. Uh, and I don't know who that person is. I haven't had time to look it up and Google the name, but I will. And
Yes.
because that stuff that you wrote from that discovery experience, I believe in that. Uh, I something, I don't know about the exact numbers, but that those four elements of expression, conveying, absolutely correct. I agree.
And I believe it, Ed. My life experience tells me that, yep, I do believe, and I too cannot verify the actual numbers. I'm going to believe that Moravian has done some research, and through whatever research he's done, he can validate these numbers. But I can tell you intuitively through life experience, yes, I do believe in this. And quite honestly, Ed, I think you and I have been in various discussions, maybe particularly in an academic setting. Well, I can remember some of what was said, but I can always leave knowing, did I leave with a sense that person cares enough about me to help me understand if there's something I don't understand, and whether that person cares a lot about me or whether I come away with some sort of impression of whether that person cares is a lot to do with body language and eye contact. Eye contact is very important. Some people feel uncomfortable with eye contact, but I will tell you, for me, eye contact is very important, and so I believe in that. So
So,
that's
so
as
these four people that you were mentioning earlier as the outstanding teachers or
yes,
go-to resources, they exhibited that
they
set
did.
of stuff.
They did, and so I can tell you, my grandfather was a very much a reserved person. He did not talk a lot. He is a third grade dropout, but he was president of the local bank. He was elected president emeritus, and he intuitively, I use that term, intuitively knew how to invest money. He was just a master at it, and he taught me how to invest money. And so he would never purport to be a classroom instructor or anything like that. But I can tell you, Ed, we would sit at the breakfast table, lunch table, dinner table, and I would ask different questions, hoping that he wouldn't think I'm stupid because of the type question I'm asking. But he would always have a very thoughtful response to that. And I thought, wow, I don't know how he learned it. I really don't. But I would say just through life experience. And he was not an avid reader, but it's pretty clear to me that he associated with the right people. He read whatever he wanted to read, and he assimilated information. And he was a very, very successful investor. And and he passed on whatever it is you wanted to know. He would never say, "Sit down here, I want to tell you something." Hey, but if you ask, he would tell me. That's just the kind of person he was.
Interesting. Great. Why don't you
Yes.
show some of those slides?
Yes. And so again, the Moravian rule, the 73855, just again, that 7% is such a small percentage of what we say is actually conveyed in the words we speak. And 38%, more than one third, is conveyed through the tone of voice. And so we need to be very careful about tonality. And some people say, hey, I'm just going to throw out whatever comes to mind in whatever tone comes out. And if you misunderstand it, so what? It's your fault, not mine. Well, the person who really cares, who is willing to invest time in you, is at least notionally aware that the tone of voice is very important. And then again, the body language that am I willing to maybe very thoughtfully put my arm around your shoulders, shake hands? Am I willing to make eye contact? All of those things, Ed. Some people may think, well, that doesn't matter a whole lot. Well, actually, it does. And it's not just because of Moravian, but I'm going to guess, Ed, your, my, and other people's life experience, while we may not know these exact numbers, would say, now that you brought it to my attention, I will tell you that yes, body language is a lot of the way we communicate, and it has a lot to do in this context of whether I believe in you. And but that is a very operative part of my life. And then again, financial resources, or let's just say not financial, but any resource investment. Some people think of resources primarily as money. And I would tell you, it's not necessarily that. But again, in the context that body language and 55%, it's how much time are you willing to invest in me? Are you willing to help me understand? And I really believe that time is one of the most important investments we can make in people. And in the context of time, it has everything to do with priorities. That do I rank high enough with your priorities that you're willing to answer any questions with me, with the understanding that I don't expect you to stop everything you're doing to answer my questions right now, but would you be willing to take some amount of time somewhere to talk with me to help me understand? And each of those four men then, Marty now, are helping me understand. And Ed, there was a time in my life early on, I really thought I would never ask a question because asking questions means I'm ignorant, and ignorant means I'm stupid. And I had an early thought that, well, maybe I'm intellectually incapable. I wouldn't ask questions, and but I had to overcome a lot of that dark point in my life early on. And each of these four men, again, they were not formally my mentors, but they did believe in me. They spent time with me, and it wasn't hours per day, but it was just at the right time of the day, very meaningful to me. Well, gosh, you're willing to spend just a few minutes and whatever time you had to answer questions, and it was very meaningful. Ed, all of that together is what I'm referring to as believing in people, and it has a lot to do. It has everything to do with a family culture. It has everything to do with a work culture. In how well do we relate to each other? And I will tell you that based on my military experience, and I specialize in leadership, culture, and teamwork. And with all that together, Ed, I will tell you that much of my military background, I do have 300 combat missions. And I'll say very briefly that I believe there are three vocations that have teamwork down to a fine art, and that is firefighters, law enforcement, and military. I believe we have those three vocations have teamwork down to a fine art, because literally in some cases our lives depend on trusting each other. We must communicate well with each other, and it is a matter of transferring knowledge to and amongst each one of us. As we're willing to do that, we are going to have I use the term camaraderie, but we will have a friendship that I believe will exceed many others things that are happening in the world. You and I have very recently talked about how there's such divisiveness in the world because of various things. And so, are we willing to overcome and work through much of that divisiveness? My fervent hope from the heart is that we will work through that. In It's another topic, Ed, but I think you and I can likely agree there is a continuum between home and the workplace, meaning if things are not going well at home, you're likely going to carry that thought into the workplace. And if things aren't going well into the workplace, it's pretty likely you're going to carry whatever less than good feelings into the home. And so that's in that context where I say there is a continuum. And are we willing to invest in people to help them perform at their highest potential? Ed, a lot more that can be said about it, but that is the essence of what I represent and what I can help any of your listeners develop in their personal home and or the workplace.
So let's go back a little bit to those attitudes of or thoughts of I have to hide what questions I want to ask because I don't
Okay.
want to look insufficient, or I don't want you to think that I'm dumb, or why don't I know that anyway? That the developmental attitude that you were willing to look into as a result of these four relationships and the safety you felt within that thing, that enabled you to open your mind. Is that correct?
It did, yes. And so again, early in life, okay, quite honestly, my father said frequently, "Well, I thought you knew, or you should have known."
Mhm.
And I had an analytical mindset that, well, okay, now I want to know, well, when, where, how. And many times that I could never determine that the answer to the how, when, or why. My father was the type person who you would never ask him, well, Dad, how should I have known that? Because now he would interpret that as questioning his authority. So I just knew you never ask. And so that it was the type of culture we had, I had, I'm not here to say my father intended that. It's what I interpreted. And so for nearly 20 years of my life, of the first 2 decades, I would not ask very many questions. Ed, I can almost promise you, I would have never asked you a question, because that proves I'm stupid. And so I just went into hiding, so to speak. But it has everything to do with my confidence in those four men. Each helped me develop I hope, what is a healthy self-confidence. And through that healthy self-confidence, I knew that, hey, everybody is ignorant about something, but being ignorant doesn't mean you're stupid. And so I'm inquisitive enough, and this is another topic entirely. I hope everybody is curious, and I'm a self-described incurably curious person now, because I know, Ed, you know things I don't know. And quite honestly, by asking you a question about something, it's complimentary to you that you know the answer, and hopefully you're willing to share with me. So there is that kind of reciprocity that occurs, but it took me 2 decades of my life to be able to process all of that. And so some of us are slow learners.
It's an evolving process. So you got to just stay alive while you're learning.
Yes, that is true.
Oh boy. Okay, so I've learned that because in the relationship that I have with Joanne, it just I'm not going to get into a lot of detail at this moment, but it is almost exactly the scenario. And some things are reversed and others are right on target. But
Right.
yeah,
And so, Ed, I'm going to talk to the leaders that are listening right now. I can almost promise you, you have somebody in your organization who virtually remains silent about, and then fill in the list with whatever. And they're remaining silent because of something in the past they don't have the confidence to. And we, as leaders, need to demonstrate we care, and we need to spend whatever time we need to invest time with people to learn. And we have spoken many times about having a psychologically safe space that is an environment where we can freely discuss with each other. And if you trust me, I might feel very comfortable divulging to you, well, Ed, I just don't feel comfortable, or I did not until very recently, did not feel comfortable even discussing whatever the topic is, but I feel comfortable I can around you because you will not use it against me in any way. And so I don't want to be a gossip topic. I don't want for you to think any less of me because of, but it has everything to do with developing a mutual confidence, trust in each other. And when we do that, we are both going to be benefit. That there is a mutual benefit from all of that. We each grow stronger through it, Ed. And growing together is a very operative term. Perhaps you can say that about your wife, Joanne, as I can about Marty.
so I want to practice full disclosure here, just for the sake of clarity. And so Joanne and I met when I was 52 years old, and um, uh, in a few days, in 3 weeks, I'm going to turn 80. So it has been like the second coming, that kind of
Okay.
glorious, life changing for me. And because part, the first 50 or so weren't blissful at all, the turmoil and mistakes and uh, almost traceable back to that day, September 16, 1996 or so, uh, at 6 p.m.
Okay.
In walked this lady in a blue dress, and I was awestruck ever since, to this day. Not a straight
And
road,
so,
but a good road.
sure. And
Yeah.
Ed, right there, I'm going to guess you felt, you still feel comfortable um, talking with Joanne about different things. I will tell you that for Marty and me, we can still today, after 57 years of marriage, we can spend hours talking with each other. We're talking about the future of our business, our lives, and what do we have ahead that we can, the opportunities, what opportunities do we want to seek? And Marty and I are very different. I'm much more outgoing than Marty, but we complement each other. And so where I'm weak, Marty is strong. And perhaps you can say that about Joanne. But Marty and I can at times have very differing views on different things, but we would never carry that to an extreme of, well, gosh, how could you possibly think of that? And I think long term negative hurt. Never. It's I want to know her perspective. Her life is obviously a little bit different than mine, albeit we're both raised on dairy farms. But at any rate, Ed, those are the kind of things that when we feel free to communicate with each other, we trust each other, we can feel very open to divulge different things. And I again use the term, I want to be appropriately vulnerable. I never want you to think I'm dwelling on the past. I'm not seeking your sympathy, but maybe in 90 seconds to 2 minutes, I can tell you a little bit of my past. And yep, the past is what it is. But with your help and others, I have overcome the past and I'm living today and forward. And I do recognize that some people are going through right now what I did go through, and I would never hold that against you, but I'll tell you what I did to make it through my past.
So I also want to say, in the light of this disclosures and openness, and to show that I understand and I care about what you're saying because it's meaningful to me in many ways, that Joanne's first husband died in a plane crash. He was a pilot, had his own flying school,
Uh,
and the two little kids, 2 and 3 years old, and she was left alone
yep.
and turned into an entrepreneur in real estate,
Mm-hmm.
buying and selling in San Diego. And because she couldn't get a job and leave the kids alone, didn't want to. She had to be dad and mom. So she fortunate that in Southern California, the real estate prices kept going up. So she went from neighborhood to neighborhood, but all within the same school district, so the kids wouldn't have to change schools. It's a pretty smart move. And it proved really, really successful. And I've been married twice and had very other relationships as well over the years. And so we decided we're not going to get married. We're just going to stay together because we want to. We don't need a contract.
Mm-hmm.
So it's 28 years right now.
Well, all right.
And
So
it's-
obviously you're very compatible. She noted your compassion, and there's probably a mutual compassion, and everything seems to line up, Ed.
So onwards. Not every day is blissful, but because when the I believe in you thing is, it can be transferred, and my mind is thinking right now and is flashing here and there, but about the words that I want to use may not fit what she wants to hear, or doesn't understand the juxtaposition of the words or the attitude. And, you know, it could be a blue streak to her, or it could be really meaningful to me, and vice versa.
Sure.
Yeah.
And Marty and I frequently, as I mentioned earlier, have conversations that I would have never guessed. I mean, how did you come up with that, whatever that is? And she has perspective, I have her perspective, and we compare those perspectives. And I'm a believer, Ed, that we can always, literally always, work through any differences we may have as long as we can dialogue. That because I'm looking for the very best in you, the person I'm working with, always. I'm looking for the positive. And so, as we honestly, from our heart, know we're looking for positive, we'll find it. And the converse is true. If we're looking for negative, we'll find that. But if we are looking for the positive, we can build on whatever positive we're looking for. And together, a very operative term for Marty and me, together, we will advance. And that's a very operative term for our business, the Cooper culture. We want to advance people individually, we want to advance businesses. And I know exactly how to do that with the teamwork concept. When we work together as a team and we have the right people, we have shared values. I can promise you, we are going together. We will overcome anything that might, for some people, be an obstacle. But we will work through it because we are committed to do just that.
When you were in charge of a squad
Yes.
and beyond, um, you use the same, I would assume that you use a lot of the same approach to having the teamwork, uh, practice, 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 and understand what the the rule is, how to do something. But I'm thinking that you got into the depth, the meaningfulness of whatever it was, that they had to learn something, master it.
Yes, and I will tell you, Ed, in the military, and but it's very true in a lot of organizations, particularly as I mentioned earlier, firefighters, law enforcement, military. There is a discipline. We have to have a discipline. Let me just explain very briefly, and I think I've mentioned this one other time, but let's just say that you are a four-star general, Ed, and I'm leading a flight of 4 aircraft as a captain. Well, it is understood in the briefing room that I am in charge. You certainly outrank me, but I'm in charge of this flight. I studied exactly how I'm going to conduct the flight, and it is a matter of discipline. And so I am in charge of the flight. I studied what I'm going to do, how I'm going to conduct the flight, and I am totally responsible for everything. Now, the four-star general and others, you are responsible for performing in your aircraft in accordance with the briefing rules that I set. We know how to fly. We call it a four ship. We have 4 aircraft together, and we know exactly how to operate our respective aircraft. But together, it takes all 4 of us to have a very defined mission to accomplish whatever the overall objective is. The four-star, yep, is by virtue of our discipline, listens to me because I'm in charge of this flight. And and so in that context, Ed, it is a matter of a discipline. It is a mindset, but it is how we are. So in the squadron, I will tell you that a lot of us fighter pilots are we known to be type A people. I mean, just very strong, dogmatic people. And but it is a matter of how we treat, how we relate to other people, because we need to trust each other. And there are disciplinary rules in flight that you just don't talk whenever you feel like it. We have very disciplined manner of speaking. We have a very disciplined manner of flying that I expect you to be in whatever formation, whatever distance from me, and so forth. And so there is a very definite, defined discipline we have. I brief it, I debrief it. How well did we conform to that discipline? And we learn from each flight, each occasion. That's kind of a long explanation of what it's about. But Ed, that's all a part of the discipline, and we have to have that discipline because if in the case of a four ship aircraft, 4 different people, if we each did our own thing, then pretty obviously we're going to be less effective than if the 4 operated as one unit. And so that's a lot of the military mindset.
So you roll over that approach into team building in a company?
Oh, it's exactly what I do, Ed, because I know exactly what it is to have teamwork. And I'll just say very definitely the teamwork in a company is there is an appropriate time to ask a question, but there's a time when it's not appropriate to question me in my role. And I don't mean that in an autocratic way at all, but as a leader, I'm not a leader because of some words on a business card or whatever position I have. I'm a leader if I use the term frequently, if I influence people. I do want to inspire people to do their very best. My responsibility as a leader is to help develop people and to help people perform at their very best potential. And they will, if they know I care about them, and I am dedicated to invest myself, as we talked about in the I Believe in You presentation. If we're willing to invest time in people, they will respond to that. And so that's when we do all that, I can promise you, we will have a very cohesive team.
That's great. Do you want to take some time to show a slide or two?
I will do that. And Ed, I can somewhat close this out by saying, here's my contact information. And again, for your listeners, I specialize in teamwork, leadership, and culture. And everything we've discussed in this time together is what I help businesses develop, where we can have very cohesive teams in a psychologically safe workspace where we can feel free to speak with each other and discuss different ideas. I encourage our leaders to encourage our staff members to fail. That can be another topic, but let's do fail, because as we have innovative thinking, not everything that represents innovation, new ideas, is going to work. And so what we do is fail forward, always, always failing forward. So whatever idea we had, if it didn't give us the results we had hoped for, let's discuss it together. What can we do better? And we never think negative about another person, but we together say, oh, yeah, I believe we can improve the results to get where we want to be. And together we can and we will develop teams to where we will be very effective and we will be very cohesive. Again, together is a very operative term for me.
Wow, this has really been a tour de force. Thank you so much for sharing this information. And I'm just learning so much from you. And so thank you. Okay, do you want to show a slide?
I don't know that there's anything more I need to, Ed. That
Okay, good. I just want to
the
be sure.
that last slide was my contact information, and so yes, I think we're all good.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much for being on the program again. And let's take a moment here with me, if you got another 30 seconds, 60 seconds.
I do.
Um, and why not show that slide using my screen share of contact information?
Okay, and Ed, I apologize. Yes, I was showing slides and not sharing at the time right there. And so the contact information. Well, let me just very briefly go
So you
through.
see how I manipulated you to show that slide?
Wow, you sure did, Ed. Okay, right here, the four magic words. I believe in you.
Oh, I
And
feel it.
then the participant mindset. Are we willing to invest in other people? Moravian's rule, the 7, 38, and 55% are all right here. And I'll study up on Moravian to learn more about him. But are we willing to invest ourselves in other people? And it's time is one of the greatest things we can invest in. Sometimes it's money. And then this is me. And as I can help other people and develop teamwork in their organization to help them develop a safe space, that is certainly what I want to do. So thank you, Ed. I was wondering, okay, am I sharing? And I now know I was not. So thank you. You're very subtle about telling me about my error. That's all good.
Just like I knew, it's almost like a screenplay. How do I want this to come out?
Yep.
Thank
It's
you.
great.
All right, have a good one.
Thank you, Ed. You too then.
Bye
Bye.
bye. Thank you.